listening to Community Health Watch on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. Insightful conversations, impactful ideas, and voices shaping our community and beyond. Let's begin the dialogue.
Good morning. I'm Leroy Odinga Perry with YCCI Cultural Ambassador Program here with Miss Megan Perry and Miss Harmony Jones, and we're waiting on our co-host, the Reverend Dr. Alvin Clayton. So today's topic is empowering young adults through participation in clinical research, bridging health disparities and fostering community well-being. In this edition of the Community Watch radio show, we turn our attention to the vital role of young adults in clinical research and health advocacy. Our focus will be on the understanding the importance of diverse participation in clinical studies, addressing health disparities, and fostering community well-being through the lens of our young cultural ambassadors. So you want to just take a moment, guys, and just introduce yourselves to our radio listening audience. Tell them what you want to tell them about yourself that will be enlightening or purposeful, or that you just want to let the world know something about you that they can take from this show. Megan?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I am a Yale Cultural Ambassador, and I've been a part since around COVID days, if I'm not mistaken, around 2020. And I just really believe in the work we do as community stakeholders.
And hello, everybody. My name is Harmony Jones. I'm a I am a cultural ambassador as well as a community health worker. So I love to take what I learned from the ambassadors and apply it to everyday life. And I'm excited to be here.
You know, I would want our radio audience to understand something about the role of the Young Ambassador Program during COVID-19, when we were doing outreach in the community with the Yale Center for Clinical Investigations. We discovered that we did not have enough young people on our team to give voice to the issues that were surrounding the COVID-19 epidemic. And then we realized that we needed to train and develop new cultural ambassadors with some skills and training so that they could go out and help us with researchers doing research, with design and implementation in this field. And I think it's so very important. I think there's a generation gap going on in our country and probably the world. And we realized that early on, and that was one of the reasons we developed the Young Ambassador Program. And let me just say too that we had stipulations that the young ambassadors would have 40 hours minimum of training, that they would be college educated, that they would be workers within the community. And you guys have really lived up to that great potential. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And I can't tell you how much play your role has been given in the whole realm of clinical research. We have researchers who are having programs, and when we tell them about you guys and they show them the video, how can we get them to be a part of our advisory committee? How can we get them to be involved in helping us with our protocols and designs? So I'm just so happy to be able to share that and to say, what would you do better than we've already done in terms of developing this program for cultural ambassadors? Oh, anyone can answer this.
Well, I will say it is such an amazing program. I think just increasing it is one of the biggest things. With how things are right now, with the government is having a fun time with us. It does make things more tricky, but it's kind of showing that the community is needed now more than ever. And we've already had a lot of these disparities and then a lot of mistrust as a result. So having more individuals that look like you, that talk like you, who can either speak to the older generation or the younger generation is truly how you get more people to understand what clinical research is in the first place, because the majority of people do not. And then to branch that off, and then be able to be that blessing to the people by giving them that information, making sure they are completely understanding of what's going on so that they see that it is beneficial to them, to their families, to their communities, and overall to the world. Um, but again, it just starts with getting more individuals to be able to um, allow for more outreach to be out there, because getting the word out is the best way to get more out of everything.
All right,
I
Ms.
agree
Megan.
with Harmony. I think we should increase our visibility. I'm so grateful that we have all completed our 40 hours and over of training, but I think we should increase more of our stakeholder outreach on the ground. And I again agree with Harmony of us being there to bridge not only the generational gap, but see people who do look like us reflected in this sort of work. I think is imperative. And I know YCCI, we have partnerships with colleges, and we've been doing a lot more outreach in that regard. But I think that would be my one suggestion. I want us to reach the people a little bit further. We've been doing the work, so I think it's time.
Reverend Clayton, we're glad that you're able to join us. You want to throw in a word here?
Well, good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody this morning. I'm not sure how far you've gotten thus far. I heard the end of Megan's comments. It's just a joy to have these young ambassadors with us. They have brought so much energy and some insight that some of us who've been around a while may not have had. So, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show.
Yes, I think, I would want our audience also to get to kind of know you guys in a more personal way. Could you tell us what you do in the community, how your job may impact your role as a cultural ambassador? Because I know that what you've learned has also enabled you to have some more insights into some of the outreaches that you may be doing in your community. And so just Megan and then Harmony, tell us about what you do and how some of the stuff impacts and overlaps in your daily walk.
I don't know if they coincide with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the work that I do with YCCI is so different from my 9 to 5. But I do feel like the commitment to helping people, educating others, building community, I think are the overlapping. But other than that, I feel like they're so different. But I am so honored to do the work with YCCI in a clinical research space. It definitely gives a lot of insight that I would have not necessarily received in any other role. So,
Yes. All right. Thank you, Harmony.
Yeah, so I will say on the opposite end of that, my job actually heavily gets impacted. As a cultural ambassador, the training that we've had has greatly helped me in the community, because I am a certified community health worker. So I am the type of person, and one of the main functions of what I do is to go into the community and give out information, whether that's resources, information about things that are going on in the community. I even bring our research to the people and try to ensure that they understand just as much as we understand. So I find that I'll even take half of the information that, and honestly, I say half, but really everything I've learned from the ambassadors, whether that's just how to speak to individuals in regards to really to excuse me. Well, in regards to any of the work that we're doing, I just really find that every bit of knowledge that I get, I can then take that, turn it into something where people can understand. Because I find that when you speak to all different types of people from all different walks of life, uh, there's a big difference. It's easier to say it and it sounds very obvious, but you don't realize how big of a difference it is from the way one person may talk to the other. Someone who's better educated will speak differently than somebody who's not, but both parties need the same information. Um, and this was a really great way to bridge that gap to allow me to be able to vocally acknowledge and give the best information possible. So then trust me more because they see that I am here for the people and it's not based off of just what I look like or what job I have. It's about them. And because of that, we get more people who actually want to listen. And then I could provide that resource and that information. And because I provide all that information, I definitely love to push out our research information because, again, it's not known about. And it's a great way to increase the amount of knowledge out there so that people get less stigmatized by clinical research.
One, go ahead, Clayton.
Well, I want to go back just a little bit, try to share with our audience how these wonderful young ambassadors came to join us. You know, if we were going to build an effective ambassador program back during COVID-19, there was the need for a young voice. And we needed the voice of these young ambassadors because their voice was fresh. Their voice was up to date, and the young ambassador's voice was crucial. And it would have been overlooked if it had not been for my lifelong friend and colleague, Leroy Perry, who saw the need to bring in these these young minds. And it's not just about including the young people in the room, but it's about listening to them, valuing their input, and shaping the programs that we have with their ideas and inputs. The voice of these young ambassadors matters because they're authentic, they're real. I mean, they'll tell you just where it's at, and that's really important. And they're experts in their own lives. Again, they bring a fresh perspective through their lived experiences. The experience we have may not work for the young people today, but their lives and their experiences help them to want to listen and help them to want to be a part of the work that we are doing. And also, when they see, this is what I believe, when you young ambassadors see your work taken seriously, then you take ownership of what we're doing, and you help the success of the program. You're creative people. Lord knows you're creative, and it has a long-term and lasting effect on our community and on us. And we're grateful to y'all for being a part of this program and this work.
Yeah, I think that Harmony has also initiated some work with Harmony and Megan both have worked at the our yearly health event held in New Haven, and we have one coming up in September. It's going to be a community health and research event, and to see these young people helping us with the meeting the people coming into the park, directing them to the tables where they can find the information that they're looking for, helping with the designs of the flyers and the posters, and just helping people mitigate during these times. I think that is awesome. Um, and that's just one of the things that you guys do. Reverend Clayton is very, very on point when he says, "I don't even know if you know how much you do for the work that we're doing here." Um, and and I think that the training that we get and give at Yale is so important because when I was coming up, I did not understand the importance of zip codes and clinical research and healthcare. I mean, and that's relatively a new understanding now that we have that came out of COVID, that, marginalized people with their zip code. Zip code can determine how long you will live or your lifespan compared to your counterparts. Your zip code can determine whether or not your health insurance, you get it or not, or have it or not. Your zip code can tell you, like I said, your life expectancy basically, but also if you have insurance, your rates will be higher or lower based on your zip code. So your zip code is like your new DNA. And so, Megan, I know that with your job, you help a lot of people. And I'm thinking that you see this all the time, that the wealthy people have come and they bring one thing, and those who are not wealthy or in different zip codes bring another aspect. And so, in terms of your training, does the training help you in dealing with people?
I would say the training has offered new perspective. I think that because of the clinical research training we received, I do look at certain things just differently than I used to. Piggybacking off what you said about the zip codes, that is a very true statement that a lot of people don't realize, down to access to health, or to what we pretty much do is access to education on health and resources, where some zip codes are well aware of their rights and their resources, while others are just simply not. And as Harmony mentioned earlier, one thing I do love about learning with this clinical trial is how to speak to people, whether you're in second grade or you have 3 doctorates. It should be digestible and understandable information. So I definitely do take that with me with the work that I do, for sure.
Yeah, I think that, even translational, um, it's so important that you mentioned, the reading level of people, but also in translation, how do we deal with people who don't speak English or who translate words from English in a different way? So when a Hispanic person hears the word trial, they immediately think of adjudication or going to court rather than as a research term. So these are the things that are important for us to help people to understand. Also, the availability of trials and how to get into a trial. One of our young ambassadors, Jolly, was in a sleep study trial. So some of us were got into the COVID trials. But I think by our participation, we help others see that there is a doorway opening for better health in our community, and we need to bring all hands on board to get this off the ground. Let me also just state here that because of the Cultural Ambassador Program, Pharma started a program called EQB Med, and they decided that they were going to go into marginalized communities. They were going to educate and train, like we're doing with Yale, young people and community people, to see whether or not they could reach that vulnerable population that we have somehow forgotten about, in those zip codes that don't have transportation to the emergency room, don't have adequate food or housing or all the essentials. And that program was phenomenal. I wanted Tisha Johnson Harris, who brought that program to Yale, and when Reverend Clayton and I and Jackie and Sunday met with EQB Med, they said to us that because of the work of the cultural ambassadors, that was one of the reasons that Yale got this opportunity to do this. Now that program has skyrocketed into another program where Tisha Johnson runs the program, and it's called CTAC. I'm hoping, and I'm wondering, you guys, would you be interested in working with CTAC going forward in terms of implementing the things you've learned? Because the first part of EQB Med was training. The second part is how do we really reach people with this information? And I know that you guys have worked with the FDA on influencing. You worked with our teams on precision medicine, the All of Us study. And so there's so many ways. What do you think about a pathway for young people like the exposures program, or a pathway where we might include high school students? Do you have any ideas how we might design such a program?
I have ideas. Sorry, Harmony.
No, go ahead, Megan. You were right on. I think we were thinking around the same idea
Right.
here.
I feel like if you wanted us to, we definitely could. We have a foundation. We have a template of sorts. We could. I'd want to probably read a little bit more about what that would look like.
Right.
But I think anything that highlights growth and progress should be entertained for sure. How about you, Harmony?
No, I agree entirely. You know, part of the biggest thing is the education element, right? Being able to grow and have people better understand what's going on is the key here. So being able to have people who are our age and younger actually get a grasp on it well before most people do, because let's be honest, most people don't hear about this until way later. I know I didn't personally hear about it until I was in my mid-20s. But it does depend on each person, right? So it's nice when information like this can get out, and having us be able to, you know, voice that and be able to help out would be amazing, I think. And especially since we can also add in elements that relate to popular topics of the current generation. Because we will say the generation gaps has slightly slipped it again, even for us. Because even things like lingo, you know, phrasings, they change depending on which generation you're talking about. Gen Zs versus millennials versus boomers, but even the Gen Zers versus the new generation. I'm not exactly sure what their new name is. Is it just, I don't remember what the name of the new generation is. I'm sorry. But even they have different ways of saying things, you know? Um, Everything is very different in how things are portrayed and even how we get information nowadays. So being able to branch off of that with the young ambassadors, I feel like can be really, really beneficial. And then even using, you know, AI to help boost it up, you know, definitely using these elements to increase notoriety, but also increase the entertainment factor. Because if you can make anything fun or entertaining, you're going to have people listening.
Let me ask the question, because I've noticed that when I try to reply to a text, AI try to answer for me. I don't really like that. I like to use my own language. But what do you young ladies think? Are there any great potential, or are there risks associated with the use of AI, and especially as it relates to clinical research?
I don't know, Megan, you want to start?
I think there's both. I think there's risk and reward depending on who's using it and for what. I've read a lot about AI in healthcare that seems beneficial, but I also feel like it's so new that people are still trying to discover all of the risk factors, whether it's environmental or a risk towards our education. Like you said, Reverend Clayton, people are not even thinking as much anymore because AI can think and talk for people. So I think it could go either way. It's still so new, but I agree with Harmony that it can be used to help us as well. So,
You know, the ambassadors are on a program, I mean, the exposure program, the program we have for high school and college students at Yale for the summer. They're getting a lesson from Madeline Barboganitsky on the risks and the benefits of AI. And one of the things that she had suggested was that AI has to be AI has to be taught. AI, someone has to program AI. So if the people who are programming AI get it wrong, AI will just follow suit, right? It's self-defeating. And then the other thing is the dependency on AI. I mean, at some point, like, will AI replace human people and, you know, humans? Will we no longer need cultural ambassadors? All people have to do is line up to an AI app and get all the information. So, I mean, there's something artificial about AI, and then non-humanistically, it kind of precludes our humanity. But then, in a scientific way, it just seems that it is more precise, more precision. My brother worked for GM, and he told me that when in Detroit they started laying off people at the plant, and I said, but those people have been working for GM all of their lives. Their children and their children's children, they got their scholarships, they built their houses. And he says, let me tell you something. He said he went into a GM factory at 1 a.m. in the morning in Detroit. He said there were over 600 robots.
That's right. That's right.
Putting on hoods and doors, and none of the robots got sick. None of the robots had any problem with alcohol or sleep deprivation, and they could work all night. I mean, it's a blessing, I think, in one sense, but it's also a curse when it comes to, like, where does the job market going? You know, with all of these new technologies and innovations.
But we still need human eyes on these things. You still need human minds to make sure the thing is working properly. I think in terms of what you're talking about, the precision in terms of car production is probably better with machines or robots. But even then, you got to have some human eye to make sure things are what they should be. And that's probably the same thing in terms of us. It's only as good as what you feed it. And once bad information gets out there, that can corrupt God knows how many people. So we have to always do our work.
And guys, you guys know about the bad information or the bad experiments that have led to mistrust. You want to talk about, anybody want to just mention a little something about that?
See, I actually was going to say a little bit more about the AI.
Okay,
but,
go ahead.
Actually, I'll relate the AI to the distrust, right? So
there you go.
we as people we are curious people, right? Humans as a whole are curious. We want to learn new things. That's kind of our whole thing, right? And with that, we also like making things easier, right? That's the benefit of AI, right? It can make things easier. But as you guys well mentioned, it has its dangers. It definitely can give that misinformation depending on who's feeding it. And when it's relied on too heavily, people stop actually figuring out what's real information and what's just being fed. That's the true dangers of it. But on the opposite side, right? The in the right hands, it can really heavily fix that distrust, right? Being able to say, "Hey Alexa, hey Siri, whatever," and tell me about this clinical trial, right? Even if we were using our clinical trials, what would the AI realistically be able to tell people about the trials? Only what we feed it.
Right.
But if we don't feed it the right information or enough of the right information, you're going to end up in just as dangerous of a position as if any human did the same thing. You can be told the sky is falling 100 times over. Doesn't mean the sky is falling, right? You can be told the AI is going to take over every single job. Can it happen? Technically. Will it happen? Not if things are done correctly. It's all about how it's done, how that information is being fed, how that misinformation is being fed, and how to be able to put people in play to stop that misinformation before it reaches too far. The issue that we've had in the past is misinformation got covered up a lot of the time. If things get covered up, how are we going to learn from it? That's just history repeating itself. You actively have to learn about the mistakes to then move forward and to prevent those mistakes from happening again. Misinformation are mistakes.
That's right.
Simple as that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to YCCI Community Health Watch Show on WNHH 103.5 on your FM dial.
All right. All right. You know, Harmony, when you said about how it's being fed, I also thought about clinical research and also just about health in general. And it just seems to me that there are different levels. There's a greater high. There is like the precision medicine. There is the what we've already learned and acquired, and what we're learning and acquiring. But then there's a grassroots level, I think, and I'm wondering, what do you think about preventative medicine? And what are some of the things you would want our listeners to know about some preventative things? Like we talk about diabetes, that's one level. And we talk about the drugs that they use for diabetes, like metformin and others. But what about some of the things that might prevent diabetes? Preventative medicine. You have any advice you want to share with our listeners? Smoking, drinking. I mean, come on, something.
I mean, everything in moderation. You know, you could always say, don't do something. How many times has a parent said, don't do this, don't do that? Your pastor says, don't do this. It might lead to this. Mom, dad, grandma, anyone, you know? And well, I can see where everything comes from, right? There are levels, as you're saying. Everything's levels, just like everything is choices and decisions, possible mistakes, possible successes. It kind of just all varies. I know that probably wasn't the best explanation that I could give, but that's the one that my brain came up with.
No. I agree with you. I agree. I don't believe that I think that everything God has made is good. I basically, that's my presupposition. But at the same time, it has to be in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, for example, in some of the studies, we learned that, like, looking at obesity and how obesity affects diabetes, and how diabetes affects heart and lung and kidney. How, depression can come out of, like a social isolation or trauma. So I'm trying to suggest to our listening audience that there are many things that myoptically we must look at when we're looking at clinical trials, when we're looking at the health of our people. And so if like, why is it that there are more alcoholics, that we see more alcoholics in our neighborhood, or drug addicts, it seemingly, but now it seems like it's everywhere. But I mean, when they had that epidemic on the Green, and all of those folk were taken to the hospital because they were overdosing on fentanyl. And so what Yale tried to do and YCCI tried to do is we tried to say, well, maybe we ought to learn how to use these. What is that training you get? Narcan training. Narcan training. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing was, then what leads people to these things? Is it trauma? Is it the zip code? Is it coming up in rural and backward communities? And how do we do that? Is it what Reverend Clayton talks about when he says there are health deserts, where we can't even go in and get healthy foods. And, now because we got all this technology, we don't exercise anymore. You go to the table to eat, you got your iPhone. Wherever you go, you're not communicating with people. You're not doing double dutch anymore. You're not running. You're not playing. You're not playing baseball, football, any sports. And it's just amazing now to see. And it's interesting that people who are making money now are people who are dealing with obesity. I mean, the drug companies that are doing Ozempic and all these other drugs, they are prospering and everybody wants to get in on the field. But what if we started before we got to the drugs? What if we started before we got at obesity? Where would you say we need to look back in our history or look back in our minds? Jolly talks about health foods and he loves his health drinks. In fact, he was going into business for that, as well as, doing some work in terms of training. You guys got any ideas about that? Megan?
No.
I think for me, a lot of it has to do with access. And a lot of people, due to their socioeconomic background or going back to zip code, they just don't have the access or the education. Years ago, when I was teaching and we had a grant-funded yoga program, you would be so surprised how many people came out to our free events. It was actually teaching young people, young as in kindergarten, preschoolers yoga, to help with their cognitive skills. But I would host a lot of free events for families, and people in their mid to late stages in life were telling me how they never have moved their body in such a way or never felt access to have a yoga or a Pilates class or something of that nature. And I think it has to do with food as well. When I would volunteer with the food bank here in Connecticut, a lot of people would say that their first access to certain vegetables they've never seen were due to the food banks. So I feel like if there was more access, people would perhaps take their health a little bit more seriously, know that there are other options out there than what they know of. So.
I'm going to go back a bit. Either one of you can answer this question. How do you think participating in a clinical research can contribute to personal and community empowerment?
I'll answer that. I think being able to take control over your own well-being is something everybody wants to be able to do, no matter who you are. Being able to be in control of yourself is something that everyone wants to be able to do. Not everybody can do it, but everybody wants to be able to do that. It's the same thing with your health, and even just the education around your health. If you don't know, how are you going to know? If no one teaches you, how are you going to learn? You could take a fisherman to the water and fish him up a fish, a really big fish, but it won't do anything if they need to eat next week. But if you train them how to fish, if you teach them, not only will they be able to fish, they might now teach their kids, and it becomes that generational growth where you are just learning. It's the same thing. You got to learn to be able to know what to do. People like the easy way. We are in that generation. My generation loves the easy way. We're not going to pretend like it's anything else, right? If you can make it easy, if you could do things to not have to move around but still get that six-pack body, people are happy about it, right? And then we've also had things like where with obesity, where there have been movements where it's like being obese is okay, being obese is a good thing, and that's misinformation. But that's been so widely spread in America that there was a huge movement on it, and that lasted for a couple of years. So as a result, children saw that. And they thought, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that. But again, it's also what your parents teach you, right? What your parents give you. It goes back to those zip codes. If you don't know how to eat better, you're not gonna eat better, right? It all comes together. Everything's kind of needed for everything to work well. But for everything to work well, you have to be able to take control. And like I said, when they're able to take control, you'd be surprised what people will do. People do tend to gravitate towards doing the right things for themselves when they know it will benefit them.
Okay.
So when they can see the benefit, they're quicker to run to the benefit, right? The further it looks like it may not be a thing, people get discouraged. But if you could vocally explain to them, this is how this works, this is why this works, you'd be surprised at the benefit that it can provide.
On that same topic, perhaps you can talk a little bit more about exercise and diet, and how that really and truly helps better health outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but and Meg, if you want to chime in, or but I will say, because I'm a person who likes to exercise, I like to hike. But even just going back to when we were kids, like being able to like play games with your family outside, those little outdoor activities are kind of how people first get into moving their bodies, both young and old. You know, if you're taking grandma and grandpa for a walk because you want to look at all the bugs, right? A little 5-year-old might see the bugs and think, oh, this is just a fun thing I'm doing with my family. Whereas grandma and grandpa are getting a good walk exercise out of it, and everybody's enjoying themselves. When they enjoy themselves, they do better, I find. That's why you see a lot of things like dance classes and yoga classes and things of that nature, because it's not that people don't want to move, not that they don't want to exercise. It's the how is it entertaining for them? How is it going to benefit them? Because obviously, you know, the some benefits that things like exercise will have, right? But then they weigh it against the downsides of, well, I'm also going to sweat a lot and it's not fun, or I don't have the right music, or essentially you'll make any excuse in the book. But when it's entertaining and something that you actually want to do, think about how quickly people run up. Megan, just like you were saying, when you did that yoga class, it was, I'm assuming, a free class where people just came and did it. When they have the ability to just do it and they know it's there, people flock to it. But the other issue is, of course, that price tag, right? Everything nowadays does seem to have a price tag to it. When things are pricey, if you're going to pick between food or a workout class that'll help you work out and be better fit and be more fun, but you can't put food on the table, you're going to pick the food on the table. And if you going into that, if you got to pick foods, right? Are you going to pick the stuff that costs 95 cents, a dollar, maybe $5, and being able to grab a whole boatload of groceries to bring home? Or are we going to go buy a bunch of fruits and vegetables and things that may last a day or two, but we also know is going to rot and things of that nature? It's going to discourage people from wanting to grab it because they're going to go with what's financially better for them, not necessarily what's physically better for them. So I think kind of that plays a huge role in it, sadly. I think if there was more community classes and activities that people can go to, like fairs, you know, fairs are one of those prime examples where you're just walking around getting information, but you are getting your exercise out. And during things like fairs, you have people who will have like fitness classes on top of it. You have Zumba, right? They have line dancing, things of that nature, where at a community day event or a fair, you're just thinking, oh, let's go dance with my friends. Let's go dance with my family. That's some really good exercise that you just got without even thinking that you were exercising. So I think it's kind of having to trick your brain for some people, tricking yourself into wanting to exercise will definitely benefit and actually prevent some of those do those preventative measures before, you end up needing the medical side of things.
Yeah, I think that what Reverend Clayton and I basically are pointing to in this show is that there's an importance of taking charge of your health. That you personally have to do that. Like, for example, when we talk about food deserts, but there are also communities that are opening up community gardens where they're growing their own vegetables and they're participating in it. And then, making the right choices, like you said, with foods. If you had the money and you could go to Whole Foods versus going to some of these other stores where, the food may not be as fresh or the quality or may be engineered differently, it makes a difference. And I think teaching this to our children and teaching these things in our community will help with the health of our community. Other thing in taking charge of our health, I want to just say this is, when you go to your doctor, you just can't put all of your stuff in the hands of the doctor and expect them to know everything about you. If you're suffering from depression, you need to tell them. If the medicine is not working, you need to tell them. If you think you need a second opinion, you don't have to wait for somebody. You have to take charge of your health and get that second opinion. I know when I was in New York, I had a number of members of my congregation who were elderly, and like every month it seemed like somebody was getting a toe cut off, an ankle cut off, a foot cut off, and I kept saying, "Well, what's going on?" And then they would say, "Oh, well, this is diabetes," and they took it like it was there was no other option. That this was the choice. But then I learned later that not everybody needed to have those amputations. That there were other treatments that they could have probably availed themselves of. And I think that's why this YCCI program is so important, is that it tries to help us to understand the complexity of what we're going through from the social economic level to the scientific research level to the community cultural level. And then how do we work to fix it? So if you could, other than getting rid of Donald Trump's DEI ban, what would you do to fix? What would you think would be some of the fixes that might help us?
I will answer that, but I wanted to just touch on the last question because I agree with everything that Harmony was saying, especially regarding mindset. And to use myself as an example, I feel like we all always talk about generational wealth in our community of people of color, of how to build that, how to create that, and buying homes and land. But in the last few years, I've changed my mindset of generational wealth of being my health. Taking that extra walk a day and hiking with my friends, or and like Harmony said, sometimes a lot of people need that like media stimulation or a podcast or music, and just encouraging people if that's what you need to start doing it. Like I've been swimming lately. I've been trying to ride my bike of something because genuinely our health is wealth. It's so corny, but it's so true. Of even the food that we eat, of maybe not spending a whole lot of money or something, or going to the grocery store weekly, or, meal planning and prepping. Like there are so many options we have, no matter your financial status, that I think our community, I wish we leaned into a little bit more, not only for ourselves, but our families, our future children, and all of that. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. And sorry, what was the last question of what we can do to improve?
Yeah, no, I think that answers part of the question. I mean, the mere fact that you're taking charge of your health and showing us that generational wealth is really, you could have all the houses and land, but if you don't have health, it won't
have a bad heart, or you aren't going to your checkups when you can, or going into a study that you feel like could help that one thing you've been ignoring, like a sleep apnea or anything. I feel like whatever that thing is for us, we should pursue it a little bit more as a community than we have in the past, and collectively change our mindset of the wealth that we have as being healthy families, healthy adults, healthy children, how that really is priceless.
See, I think what I was pointing to was the fact that if you don't have access to health care, then and you discover late that you got prostate cancer, then you're more likely to die than someone who found out early on for breast cancer or for prostate cancer or lung cancer or any one of these cancers, and we're disproportionately affected by this. And Black maternal health. And Harmony, you know about Black maternal health because you work with the doula. Can you tell us a little bit about the doula program that you work with?
Yes. So the doula program is one that we have with the Ministerial Health Fellowship. And the whole point of it is to take somebody who is pregnant, and we have a doula, which is like a midwife. It's not exactly a midwife, but it's essentially like that helping hand that will go into your appointments with you, will speak on your behalf, and will make sure your opinions and your what you want is known and enforced. Because a lot of the time we have found that in hospital settings, sometimes people don't listen. Um, and we've seen that not listening for many different things, right? Whether that's clinical research, well, just do I like shots or not, right? Sometimes people just don't want to listen because they're caught up in their job. Um, which, again, we can understand where people are coming from, but at the end of the day, it's your health, your well being. And at that point, for the pregnant individuals, it's the health and well being of their children. So being able to have your birthing plan not only just heard, but acknowledged and acted upon to the best of their ability is essential. And that's kind of what a doula's main role is, as well as providing resources to individuals who might need them, whether that's help with getting a new crib, maybe because they don't have a crib. Because as we were talking about with depending on where you live, some people cannot afford things like cribs, or they can't afford a car seat. Um, so we with the doulas, they are able to get those resources so that those people can provide those needed essentials, for a baby's well-being. And it actually even branches further, because it branches not just with the mother and child. The doulas actually talk to the whole family, because the reality is more than one or two people are being affected. The entire family gets affected, and not everybody is ready, right? They find classes and things for the men, because being a man having a baby is hard. Because while the physical elements are on the woman, the emotional elements are on the men. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are on the women too, right? Let's be honest here. But that's where they kind of play the bigger part, and that is a toll, you know. And people aren't ready for it. A lot of guys are not ready for it. So that kind of helps them. Not everyone knows that these classes are there for people. It also allows people to have someone to talk to who's in the same boat as them, right? People feel better when they don't feel alone. And it even branches into the children. The program also allows the families to talk to each other and to kind of get almost like a counseling session without having a counselor there. But it allows, the kids to say what they feel about the situation, and the doulas even help them maybe get used to the idea of another child being in there. Or if say you have a teenager who's maybe struggling with the idea of a new baby coming into the picture after X amount of years. These are challenges that not everybody thinks about, but it definitely helps bridge those gaps in getting information and those resources to the people.
We have 2 minutes.
Yes.
We're listening to 103.5 FM, WNHH. Let me just say this, guys. I'm hoping that you guys will, I'm wondering if you guys had the opportunity to do your own radio show. Let's say we call it Sisters to Sisters. And you guys were the hosts, and you could invite people on the show, and you could develop the show in the fashion that you want. You think you guys could get that together in about a week? No, okay. Well, do you think you could get the show together? Period. First of all, and would
Definitely
there be
not in a week.
A week is just
I
not
don't know
enough
about a
time.
week.
But would that be something you guys would like to do? Because we could work. Reverend Clayton and I will help you work on a program. And see, because Reverend Clayton and I know that we're going to be in the background pretty soon, like the background behind you, Megan. We're going to be on the other side of that water. But somebody has to carry on these ideas and works. And I'm just thinking, just listening to you, if you guys had the opportunity to come up with your own show, Megan, you'd probably be a little more vociferous or loquacious than you have been on this show. And Harmony, you have all those experiences because you just got so many things you're doing, working in the emergency room, working with young kids in high school, artists, and you do videography. Mr. Johnson, by the way, did pass away. The one that you did the video for, I just wanted you to know that. But his family loved the fact that they could go back to your video. Well, we only got 30 seconds. Anybody last minute? Anyone?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you. And I hope everybody learned a little something and will come check out some clinical research because it's benefiting everybody, will benefit you. So.
All right. Thank you. Great show.
You're listening to the Community Health Watch Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Stay informed, stay connected, and take charge of your health. We'll see you again next time, right here on the Community